Hello, friends, and welcome to Mary Trump's Nerd Avengers. I am Brown Mary Trump from Earth 47, coming here all the way from the multiverse because our beloved Mary Trump is out sick today. But don't worry, she'll be back next week. But the Nerd Avengers are here. I'm going to be here with Brian Karam and Tara Setmeyer. We have a lot to talk about. There was a big debate. There was Jack Smith. There is corruption in the Supreme Court. We got Liz Cheney hanging out with Kamala Harris. We're going to talk about all this and much more. Let's roll. All right. Hello, homies. Thanks for coming in. You just saw Spinderella Mercedes there with her cat. For those who don't know, Spinderella Mercedes is the DJ who does all the hard work behind the scenes. And we have, of course, Brian Karam, White House Cub reporter, host of Reverse Shot. Brian, thank you for joining us. We're going to get Tara in 20 minutes. Yes, you're looking at your screen correctly. This is the Mary Trump Nerd Avengers. I'm Brown Mary Trump today. is fine. She'll be back next week. Brian, how you doing, buddy?
Pretty good. Did you say Proud Mary? I was looking for Tina Turner.
Oh, before we get into it, do you like the Tina Turner version or do you like the Creedence version? Do you like it nice and rough or do you like the good old boy?
If you can, I like them both, but man, you got to pick Tina. You got, I mean, because we never do anything soft. That's
the Nerd Avengers. We don't do anything soft and easy. We do it nice and rough. And Brian, let's get to the top of the news first because there's never a chill moment in the United States of America. We're talking about the debate. We got an election, and then Jack Smith said, "Hey, don't forget about me. I'm here." And for folks who haven't caught up on the news, a big whopper, the October surprise. I think for Donald Trump, this is a big October surprise. Let's not forget, folks, this is a man who's still dealing with multiple criminal indictments, about like 80 plus felony charges. And so last night, U.S. District Judge Tanya Chutkan, right here from D.C., made public a key filing from Special Counsel Jack Smith that includes evidence compiled in his investigation into former President Trump's alleged efforts to subvert the transfer of presidential power after the 2020 election. 165-page filing. Don't worry, if you haven't read it, we're going to give you the juicy parts. It is by far the most comprehensive look at the evidence prosecutors have amassed in this case, which, by the way, was upended in the summer thanks to the 6-3 conservative Supreme Court that somehow came in and gave President Trump absolute immunity for actions committed during the presidency. However, Jack Smith comes in and said, nope, he was a private citizen. So before we get into it, there's a nice segment here, thanks to Nicole Wallace. Andrew Weissman gives a really good cliff notes. Mercedes, can we play that summary by Andrew, if you don't mind?
Against the former president. Conversations directly with him by lawyers and by Mike Pence himself. At one point, one of the lawyers tells him that there's no proof of any fraud that would be outcome determinative. That claim to the otherwise, or he uses an expletive, says it's BS. He has recounted conversations with Pence himself, describing that the claims of election fraud that the president is making are not true. So this is direct evidence. There also is direct evidence of the president saying, I don't care about the details. I don't care that we would lose in court. And when he's warned that there would be violence, on page 8 of the filing, when he's warned that if he continues this, that there could be violence, he says, make them riot. That's a quote.
Wow. Also, another big whopper, he was going to declare victory even before he was going to declare victory, and even after he knew, Brian, that he lost. They knew that they lost.
Yeah.
They still promoted the lie, which we'll talk about later in the debate. 4 years later, they're still promoting. But your takeaway from the 165-page whopper dropped by Jack Smith.
Well, if you read it, I don't think there's any doubt that he was acting in a capacity that wasn't an official one. I would like to see what the court rules. And at the same time, there's no doubt that everything, we heard some of it in the White House during the days prior to January 6th. During January 6th, after January 6th, Donald Trump wouldn't come out for 3 hours. We begged him. We walked into that briefing room. We walked into the upper press, and I remember poor Judd was sitting, his only guy that was on duty that day, and we're all begging him to get the president to come out. And he goes, Brian, don't you think I've tried? If he wanted to stop this, he could. That was from inside the White House. They were saying that, and those are people who are working for him. And that was on the day of the insurrection. So none of it surprises me. I think at the same time, it is a bit of an October surprise, but Donald Trump doesn't really care. And as you can tell, J.D. Vance doesn't really care at the end of the day. Yeah, I know. We'll get to that.
We'll get to the debate. Yeah, I mean, with J.D. Vance, I'm like, you ever see the movie Ghost with Whoopi Goldberg? You in danger, girl. You in danger.
Yeah. Well, I think J.D. Vance is making his play to. Well, we'll get to that, but the point about Donald at the end of the day is it still goes back to the Roy Cohn school of politics. Always declare a victory, deny a defeat, and attack, and that's all he knows. And it's none of this is a surprise, but at some point in time, it should be a deciding factor for those of you who, for whatever reason, are sitting on the fence.
Lori, thank you for your $9.99. Me and Brian are going to go have an Americano with that. I'm kidding, but I appreciate everyone who's chiming in. For those who are joining us right now, Mary's not feeling well today. I think I gave her the sickness that I got from my kids, but she'll be back hopefully next week. We're talking about this bombshell, this 165-page report that was unsealed and released by a judge in D.C. here, which shows very comprehensively that Donald Trump not only knew that he lost the election, folks, that he planned with others to engage in the January 6th insurrection, to promote the lie, to promote the conspiracy, threw Mike Pence under the bus, and then wanted to run over his body, forward it, and reverse it. And this was part of an orchestrated conspiracy that he did in part in a private capacity, not in his official capacity as president. That would give him absolute immunity, according to the 6-3 Supreme Court. There is this another.
Well, wait a minute. Hey, watch. What if they decide that this is an official act and they give him absolute immunity? That's the scary part.
That is the scary part.
Yeah, I mean, so now insurrection is fine. But the Supreme Court has to watch out, because at the end of the day, what's good for the goose is good for the gander. And if you give this guy absolute immunity, at some point in time, there's going to be a wacko from the other end of the spectrum that's in there, and you're going to hate it just as bad. This is bad.
I want to get into the Supreme Court for a second, but let's play this clip, the one with November 23rd, Spinderella, if you have that
New
one.
Information about what happened in a November 23rd phone call between Mike Pence and Donald Trump, in which Donald Trump told Mike Pence that his private attorney was, quote, not optimistic about the election challenges. So by November 23rd, they knew that they were losing or had lost or were going to lose all these challenges. So they knew the wacky stuff being said on Fox News was not going to prevail in court.
Yeah, well,
I mean, wait, Brian, but for those who are, our community who's watching, I'm reading you. Thanks so much for coming. Mary P, I see you. Diana. Celery 8. What happened to Celery 1? But hello, Celery 8. I just want us to just sit there for a second, because we have normalized the criminality, the extremism, the stochastic terrorism, the violence. We're talking about 4 years ago. He knew he lost the election. He lost the popular vote. Republicans lose the popular vote. Biden beat him by 7 million votes. Biden flipped 5 states: Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Arizona, and Georgia. And Nebraska won, of course. It was a resounding victory, Brian. And Donald Trump, November 23rd, almost 4 years ago, knew he lost. And despite this, 4 years later, Brian, here we are, the 2024 election. A majority of Republican voters, thanks to Donald Trump's lies, believe that he actually won the election. Number one. Number two, a majority of Republican voters believe Donald Trump a serial liar more than their own family and their pastors. And we're going to talk about it in a bit, but at the debate, his own VP candidate, that good luck, JD Vance, lied on his behalf. So they knew this, and 4 years later, they're still promoting it to the point where they have radicalized a part of America's base, about 30%, and it incited a whole bunch of those folks to commit violence on January 6th that injured more than 140 cops, killed a few cops afterwards, radicalized Ashley Babbitt thanks to the QAnon conspiracy. She was killed. I mean, the amount of damage that was done, and we're so casually talking about it because he has so normalized criminality. I just wanted to let people just sit with it for a second. Like, this is not normal stuff. This is what we've been dealing with.
But Waj, it is normal for Donald Trump. And for the 4 years that I covered Donald Trump in that White House, that was Donald Trump every damn day. People can, I don't know if Mercedes can pull it, but at the top of my Twitter page, 6 weeks before the election, I asked him if he would have a peaceful transfer of power, and he wouldn't commit to it then. He knew he was losing. The polling was showing that he was losing. And his comment to me was infamously, if you stop counting, there won't be a transfer of power. The fact of the matter is that Donald Trump, this is Donald Trump's play. It's always been his play. Deny, attack, never admit defeat, always declare victory. The problem with it is when that solipsistic fictional universe in your head tries
solipsistic, well done, sir. SAT word.
Yes, try to say, look it up. Try to see if you don't know it, look it up. One of my favorite. If he tries to make that everyone else's reality, that's the problem. There are people that will buy into it, and the members of his cult firmly believe that he's the guy that he's done no wrong, that everyone's out to get him. And sometimes you're right when people are out to get you, but it's because you've committed a crime. Charles Manson thought people were out to get him. He was right, but it's because he did a crime. That's the problem with Donald Trump. He doesn't want you to make the connection. The reason why people are out to get him isn't because he's an innocent guy being chased by the law. No, he's the guy that's guilty. And the Jack Smith, going back to what Jack Smith said today, or released yesterday, what Jack Smith has done is tried to thread a needle and show that these actions taken by Donald Trump are the actions of an individual, not official actions of a president, and therefore are prosecutable. And being specific as he does, it is mind-numbing, the things that Donald Trump said, and the things that the people around him said, like I think it was one of his minions who said, "Hey, make them riot." Donald Trump didn't care about that. I was there on the ellipse. I was there when he made the speech when Giuliani said trial by combat, and Donald Trump said you all must march and take back the Capitol, and I'll walk with you. It was only because the Secret Service said, "Wait a minute," that he didn't. The fact of the matter is, all of this is manipulated, manufactured, produced, written, sold by Donald Trump. And like his hats, it's horrible.
And it's not just Donald Trump. I think what's really damning for him is that Jack Smith couldn't compile this information on his own. Jack Smith talked to a lot of Republican birds who squawked, a lot of direct testimony, eyewitness testimony, admissions. A lot of those names are redacted. We know a lot of those names. He did the work, folks. So these are a lot of folks within Trump's inner circle who squawked like birds. We're going to find out, I'm sure, later who talked, but these are folks in the inner orbit who probably realized then and realize now, wait a second, this is highly illegal stuff, inciting an insurrection, trying to steal an election, conspiring with people to steal an election. We still even haven't talked about Georgia, Brian. Remember that? Find me the 11,000 votes.
Just find me 11,000. But you know what?
The exact number. Just find me the exact number that will give me the state of Georgia and flip
plus
it, right?
one. Give me the exact number plus one. That way I didn't make it up. But to your point,
talk to me about the fact that behind the scenes, And then we have Cassidy Hutchinson, who came out just last night and said she's actually going to vote for Kamala Harris. She was part of this inner circle who came out and testified, if you all remember, during the January 6th hearings, verified much of these facts, this narrative that Jack Smith has outlined. And like you said, the reason why he has to do this, folks, is because the 6-3 Supreme Court gave a gift to Donald Trump, gave him this concept of absolute immunity, which would make our founding fathers
it did more than that. It destroyed democracy. They just flat out destroyed democracy. They put a gun to the head for Donald Trump. Look, folks, the democracy we all grew up with is dead. That's all. That's a fact. Because what the Supreme Court has done is given any president the right for immunity if they can call it an official act. And who gets to decide it's an official act? The Supreme Court. That's a star chamber. That's not democracy. The only chance you have, which is why you get all these thousands of Republicans and people who normally can't stand each other saying we got to get rid of Donald Trump, is because they understand that. But to your point earlier, Wise, one of the things that's kind of funny about this whole Jack Smith investigation is, look, and this is out of all the presidential campaigns, out of all the presidential administrations I have ever covered, no one, and I mean no one, had more leaks and more people talking than Donald Trump. Jack Smith had a plethora of people to talk to who would eagerly talk to him, because that was our day. There was, I'm telling, it was like a Busby Berkeley production. And all
Brian,
that jazz.
Brian, by the way, that's how you win over Gen Z. You do a Berkeley, name drop. Yeah.
We're looking that one up going,
I'll do a Gen X. It was a Glee production. That's for the old timers.
There you go. It was. Or Cats. They got real catty.
Cats, the animated musical, which was horrifying if you've seen the movie version of it. But it is a chorus of Republicans. It's a chorus of Republicans, and this is what's really terrifying to me: is you have some folks who know what he was doing was wrong. You have fewer folks like Cassidy Hutchinson willing to come out publicly and break with him. And what's really disturbing is what you and I have talked about on this show, is that when I was at CNN, Brian, and I had to go one-on-one and do these dumb debates, right? Left versus right. In the green room, folks, nearly every single Trump supporter
Republican say the same thing that I'm good. Yeah, go ahead. I know where you're going.
I can't stand this guy. I hate this guy. And I told them, no one's putting a gun to your head and telling you to come on national television and support him and defend him. And they said, well, this is how the bread is buttered. And now you're seeing this. The fact that so many Republicans, his inner circle, are squawking.
Production. This is one of the reasons why I'm not on CNN or MSNBC or any of those anymore, because I call it out as you do. I remember the very first time I ever sat with Kellyanne Conway. She was talking about at the time.
Did the flowers wilt when she was there? Did the flowers wilt? Did the sun get
well, it got steamier and hotter and full of shit when we were in the green room. But this was in Philadelphia, and she was, at the time, Kellyanne Fitzpatrick, and she was supporting Dan Quayle. And so between commercials, she just looks over and she goes, yeah, Dan Quayle's full of shit. I can't stand him. I don't know why. And so then she gets out on, and we go live, and she's defending Dan Quayle. So I called her on it and went live, and she goes, you can't tell people what I was saying in between commercials. I go, well, why not? I cannot stand that. If you're going to give me an opinion, man, stick to it. Don't try to butter me up and say, hey, I really agree with you, but because this is where I'm getting paid, I got to say something else. That's horseshit, because the bottom line is people listen, watch you, and believe you, and buy your bullshit. And if you're selling, blatant bullshit, you should not be allowed on television. It's one of the problems I have with Scott Jennings. It's one of the problems I have with a lot of those people who, either for hook or crook or just plain stupidity, buy the baloney and sell it.
So we have this, I agree with you, Brian, and we're revealing this for you all who are watching, because a lot of you don't know how the haram, not halal sausage, is made in DC, in the Acela track between New York to DC, but it's very incestuous and it's infuriating. And oftentimes, look, Brian gave a comment about Dan Quayle. This is how the town works, but this is not normal, folks. This is an ongoing conspiracy. This is an ongoing failed coup. They haven't stopped. Donald Trump, when he has been asked every single time during this particular campaign, will you accept the results of the 2024 election. What did he just say 2 days ago? Ask me in 4 weeks, which means he's going to repeat it. Which means he's wait 1 second, Brian. Which means he's going to repeat it. And what's also different this time around, folks, and I want to get back to the judges, Brian, because this is the importance of, look, for those who haven't read Project 2025, Donald Trump and Republicans, they want to perfect the dress rehearsal that was the failure of the 2020 insurrection, which is why they want to purge the government of people like Jack Smith. They want to replace judges who still have a fidelity to the Constitution. And in the face of death threats, because let's not forget, Judge Tanya Chutkan, like so many other judges who has applied the law fairly to Donald Trump, she has, Brian, received death threats. But now we have a Supreme Court. This 6-3 Supreme Court, as we have talked about, gave this gift, an unconstitutional gift, an attack on democracy of absolute immunity, which goes completely contrary to the founding of this nation. This 6-3 Supreme Court just last week helped kill an innocent man, Marcellus Williams, a man who was executed, even though prosecutors said he was innocent. At the last second, the Supreme Court could have stayed it. 6-3 decision. Guess who went all in with the execution? The pro-life 6 conservative judges. The 3 liberal judges didn't. And so, Brian, looking forward.
How do you call it pro-life? Go ahead.
If you look at this 165-page document, I believe, as a former attorney, well, as a recovering attorney, still licensed, they got him dead to rights, man. But it's going to end up going to Judge Roberts of the Supreme Court. And I'm very skeptical, Brian, that even though Jack Smith tailored this within a narrow alleyway, like you mentioned, based on that new Supreme Court ruling, he still has Trump dead to rights, but it'll come to the Supreme Court. What will Justice Roberts do?
That's what we talked about earlier. That's what my fear is. And look, they stacked the deck. I want shout out to one of your the comments, but they stack the deck every chance they get. It's not not in the Supreme Court. Everything that they do is about stacking the deck. So they stack the deck there. They will sit there and gripe about Kamala Harris and Tim Walz and say they don't have any press availability. And they'll say, hey, look, we're having press availability. Bullshit. They stack the deck there. They're not letting me in. They're not letting other members of the press in. They're stacking the deck. Everything that they do, again, that word, solipsistic, they are coming from within their own head and trying to force their idea, their fictional reality on the rest of us. And they continue to do that. So, yeah, that's why I'm concerned that when it gets to and here's the thing. I remember Roberts, when he first got on the Supreme Court, his kids were playing MSI soccer in Montgomery County, the same as my kids were. Occasionally we would see him. He seemed like a decent guy back then. He seemed like he cared. He was common sense. But like everyone else that's been tied into this universe of Donald Trump, you sell your soul. And that's where it boils. That's why you get everything that you get. They are all enamored. They are part of the human centipede. And guess what? They're not at the head of it. They're taking a shit at the ass end. And that's all that it is. And spewing it out. And
I did not need to see that image. When you said human centipede, it took me to that movie. And he kind of gave me the worst image in oh my God. But listen, you're talking about
but it's true. Tell me it's not true.
It is true.
Yeah.
And real quick, I just because you punish the audience with solipsistic, you have to now type it in the comment section, and so they can go Google it. But it's the Faustian bargain, right, Brian? Because I'm looking at this right now, and we talked about the Faustian bargain that the entire right wing, not just MAGA, but the entirety of the GOP has made for Donald Trump. And it comes at a cost, right? The good news is when he wins, you win. When he loses, you lose. When you have a sudden spark of ethics, morality, and patriotism, guess what happens? Mike Pence happens. Let's play the clip, if we can, Spinderella Mercedes, about what happened to Pence and what he was talking about in Pence, according to this 165-page filing.
Into a secure location. Witness P15 rushed to the dining room to inform the defendant, Donald Trump, in hopes that the defendant, Donald Trump, would take action to ensure Mike Pence's safety. Instead, after this person delivered the news, the defendant, Donald Trump, looked at him and said only, quote, "So what?" Lisa?
The cavalierness with which Donald Trump received that news.
So what, folks? This was as Donald Trump's minions, cult members, were defecating in the U.S. Capitol, attacking police officers with flags. Some people came with nooses. Literally came with nooses for Nancy Pelosi and Mike Pence. They came there to assassinate him. Why? Because Mike Pence did his duty. He talked to callback Dan Quayle. Brian already mentioned him. Dan Quayle said, do your duty, certify the election. A judge, one of the conservative judges they all respect, said, do your duty. Mike Pence at the last second said, fine, I'll do my duty. And for doing his duty and certifying the election that Donald Trump knew he lost and Biden won, his base, the MAGA base, went to kill Mike Pence. Mike Pence is the whitest, most Christian, most Republican man who prostrated himself for 4 years to Donald just to get ahead. And just because at the last second he wasn't loyal enough, Brian.
He was scared. It wasn't even loyalty. He knew. Look, I was there that day. They were screaming, to hang Mike Pence. He would not get in the car with the Secret Service agents and leave. He knew damn well that if he did, that the chances were he wasn't going to make it. That I will give, and I've interviewed Mike Pence since back in Indiana days, and back when I think he ran a radio show, and I thought he was a little funky back then, but he was always a nice guy, although he always called his wife mother, and I don't even think he was married to her at the time, but that's another story. But Pence was never the guy who was going to engage in anything outside. And speaking of Dan Quayle, I think it was Dan Quayle that saved our country by telling Mike Pence, hey, look, don't do it. But that's right. But Mike Pence was the guy who was about, he was always and continued to be and always spoke about the Constitution. Now, his idea of what was constitutional, his idea of what this country about, and mine were different. But at the same time, I respected his ideas. He respected ideas different from him. And that was why he got in trouble with Donald Trump. You're right, he wasn't loyal enough, but he was damn scared on that day, and with good reason. If you could have been there on January 6th, as I was there on January 6th, you would know that this was no joke. January 6th was razor thin between a complete coup and a failed coup. And the simple fact of the matter is when I was there, I think that some of those insurrectionists couldn't believe they were that successful at the very beginning. We're like, what do we do now? They're marching through the Capitol, spreading crap on the walls, sitting in Nancy Pelosi's office. And by just the razorest of thin margins, they missed the people that they wanted to capture and kill. And there were people that were the police, Capitol Police, who saved the day that day. It was a very series of fortunate incidents. It will not go down that way this time around. For one, Joe Biden is still the president. He will, you won't be able to blame Nancy Pelosi and say, and hey, Tara, and Nancy Pelosi, you won't be able to blame her because Donald Trump will not be Joe Biden won't sit like Donald Trump for 3 hours and do nothing. And by the way, and here's the guy that I look at him as a hero every day. I've known him for 25 years. Tom Manger, who's head of the Capitol Police Department now, knows how to handle riots. He's a no-nonsense kind of guy, and he ain't going to take what they're dishing out. This is going to be better coordinated. You're not going to get a repeat of January 6th. So what I am concerned about, and I don't know if fear may be too strong, what I'm concerned about is the obfuscation, voter suppression, the cheating, the making sure, and all of that prior to the counting of the ballots to try and obfuscate everything. So that's why people, you're not voting. You're not voting this year for Kamala Harris or Donald Trump. You're voting for democracy or you're voting for fascism. And if you value your democracy, you're voting for Kamala Harris.
All right. I appreciate that TED Talk, Brian. I give you a golf clap and welcome Tara Setmeyer of the Seneca Project. Tara, we were talking about the 165-page filing, which I know has been top of mind, but I want to connect the dots because we're looking backwards in time about what Donald Trump did leading up to January 6th, right? The conspiracy that he had with Republicans. But it ain't just 2020. It's 2024. In fact, it's Tuesday. It's debate night. And Spinderella, play that clip of Tim Walz and J.D. Vance talking about January 6th. This is just from 2 days ago, folks.
This was a threat to our democracy in a way that we had not seen. And it manifested itself because of Donald Trump's inability to say. He is still saying he didn't lose the election. I would just ask that. Did he lose the 2020 election?
Tim, I'm focused on the future. Did Kamala Harris censor Americans from speaking their mind in the wake of the 2020 COVID situation?
That is a damning non-answer.
It's a damning non-answer for you to not talk about censorship. Obviously.
All right, so we'll talk about the debate in a second, but connecting the dots, Tara. We've just been talking about Mike Pence, Donald Trump, 2020, leading up to the January 6th insurrection. That clip was from 2 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
Mike Pence ain't on the stage for a reason.
Yeah.
JD Vance is. You're in danger, JD Vance. You in danger, girl. But talk to us about what you just saw right there in the year 2024 when it comes to conservatives, when it comes to the GOP, your former party.
Well, what I saw was the inability to tell the truth, the perpetuation of this dangerous lie about January 6th and about the election results in 2020, the peaceful transfer of power. And I saw someone who was wholly unfit to be the vice president of the United States, whose job it is to certify our free and fair elections. It's a constitutional duty here. And yet JD Vance can't simply say yes or no and acknowledge that. That should be it. I mean, it's so frustrating to me that as a country, that this part of the job of the president and vice president has been completely overlooked. It's just a shrug. It's a collective shrug. So what? If they can't admit that they lost the election, so what if Donald Trump is running around saying we won't have any more elections, or he's going to weaponize the Justice Department to go after his enemies, or if he keeps pushing lies about what actually happened. So what if the vice presidential candidate that he's picked has decided that he's not going to uphold his constitutional duty or one of the fundamental things that the vice president actually is responsible for? No, he can't do it. This is so dangerous to all these other policy issues that people are going back and forth over, these undecideds, which I'm still, it frustrates me who these people are. But, for us at Seneca Project, we target women and giving women the permission structure, particularly right of center women, to say, like, it's okay, that the negative partisanship and the tribalism and all of that stuff that you've been inundated with for all these years. I was part of that. I get it. Like, all of that doesn't matter now. We're literally looking at constitutional crises. We're looking at a fundamental change in the way our country works every day. And we're looking at women losing our rights for a long time, because when you lose something, it's real hard to get it back. Not only does that apply to democracy, but it also applies to us now as second-class citizens. And JD Vance and Donald Trump and the MAGA collective, because the vote is you're not just casting a vote for Donald Trump and JD Vance. You're casting a vote for the cacophony of kookery fucking crazy people that are going to be empowered with him. They can't do this themselves as much as they'd like to. Donald Trump will try to do a lot of things by executive order, and he'll have a lot of accomplices. But that's who you're voting for. You're not just voting for them. You're voting for all of those people who have said horrible things, who have tried to overthrow our government, who look at the Project 2025 as the roadmap to what they want our country to look like. And if you don't believe us, just look at who they hang out with. They look at Viktor Orban in Hungary as a shining example of what they want in America. Like, these are all the things that we need to keep reminding people of, about what's at stake, that it's not just about, tax rates and it's not just about inflation. These are not things that you can just wave a magic wand. And folks need to remember what's at stake here. And that the filing that came out yesterday highlights this. Let's remember, everyone. Let's bring it back. I know we all have short attention spans in America. If it's not 15, 30, 60 seconds, forget it. We're on to the next.
Who are you again? Who are you? What? No, sorry.
I'm sorry. Where am I? What is this? What are we doing? But it's true. And but that's a different commentary on where we are as a country and our society. But that's a different story. We have to play the game that we're in. And the game that we're in is pointing out who these people are and what they planned to do before, and you think they haven't learned and haven't recalibrated after the mistakes they made in 2020, MAGA and Donald Trump were only a handful of good and decent public servants who said, hell no, we're not going along with this, away from destroying our constitutional system. A handful of people, we're talking half a dozen in the Justice Department and a couple folks in the states. That was it. Are we willing to put our democracy back in the hands of these people? And that's what this filing has brought back to the floor.
Not a democracy.
Well, Brian, real quick, Brian, I don't know. I want to say this real quick because speaking about the debate, and it's been 2 days. People have talked about the debate to death. Yeah. I'm glad we led with what I believe was that whopper, that ending.
Yes.
Which really laid the stakes. But there's another aspect here. And Tara, I wanted your thoughts on, because you talked about Seneca Project, you're dealing with women, center-right, people who might be, swing state voters.
Yep.
To me, if you're really listening to the policy, where I felt that Walz really shined was that final clip we just played by January 6th. Yep. But also, if you look at the polls, overwhelmingly Walz won on healthcare and women's rights.
Yes. Yes.
And I feel like we're not talking about the horrific answers that J.D. Vance gave on those two topics.
The lies. They weren't just horrific. They were lies. J.D. Vance, and if folks haven't seen, at Seneca, J.D. Vance, as soon as he was announced, we put out very quickly a compilation of some of the awful things that he said about women, including the cat ladies thing before it really took off. So I kind of want to pat myself on the back for my team's effort on that. Yes. My team's amazing. And, all of those things to be like, this is the guy, this is where you're going. This guy that has a clear, and I've said this repeatedly, he has unresolved childhood trauma from his mother and that whole situation of how he grew up. And we are living out in real time his therapy for himself and the retribution that he wants against women and what their role should be and what he thinks family should be, because he has these unresolved childhood traumas. He's got mommy issues, Trump's got daddy issues, and they really all need to do a group therapy together and bring Elon Musk with them, because we are all the ones that are now suffering at the hands of their freaking unresolved childhood trauma. So why would we hand power to these people? But that's an aside. The women's issue and what all of those issues that Tim Walz talked about, like, this is where I was a little frustrated with him. I love the coach. I love Tim Walz. I think he's fantastic. And this was not his best night in that he's just not built that way. He's not a slick, polished politician that's been practicing in the mirror to try to be a political chameleon to fit in the way J.D. Vance has. I mean, again, this is someone that has no real convictions. He's a nihilist, and he's also in denial about some things about himself personally, I think, which is why he's always trying to search to fit in somewhere. But, this is where it was a missed opportunity, because he could have nailed J.D. Vance on the lies and the duplicity. I mean, this is a guy, he didn't bring up cat ladies. He didn't bring up the national abortion ban. He didn't bring up the fact that he voted against IVF twice or didn't show up for the votes, which is essentially a vote against IVF. Like, he didn't bring up, he let him get away with making the MAGA extremism look moderate and normal. And like, for people who just weren't paying attention, they're like, oh, JD, that doesn't sound so bad. He was flat out lying his ass off. But at least Tim Walz was like, the bottom line was, he said, we trust women, we trust doctors. That's right. The line of the night.
Remember
Brian,
who the debate was.
Brian, hold on. Let me get to you in a second, because I want to play this clip and then I want to get to you. I agree. We were watching the debate with Mary Trump's Nerd Avengers, and Tara, it was like me, Brian, Jen, I think Danielle. We were like you. We were like, my God, man, we're missing slam dunks, for the love of God. I think someone coached him to be super nice to the point of his detriment.
I agree.
But he got the points in. And I want to just play this one clip, because the stakes, folks, the stakes are so real. Can you play the Amber clip?
About restrictions?
Yeah, well, the question got asked, and Donald Trump made the accusation that wasn't true about Minnesota. Well, let me tell you about this idea that there's diverse states. There's a young woman named Amber Thurman. She happened to be in Georgia, a restrictive state. Because of that, she had to travel a long distance to North Carolina to try and get her care. Amber Thurman died in that journey back and forth. The fact of the matter is, how can we as a nation say that your life and your rights, as basic as the right to control your own body, is determined on geography. There's a very real chance, had Amber Thurman lived in Minnesota, she would be alive today.
Brian, I know you wanted to chime in, but I want to, just for folks who didn't see the polls, when it came to immigration, after the debate, actually it's pretty remarkable. You know, Biden was double-digit losing. Kamala Harris, Tim Walz were within 4 points. Economy, 2 points, margin of error. When it comes to foreign policy, they're tied. When it came to women's rights and healthcare, after this debate, double-digit lead after these answers. But Brian, you wanted to chime in.
Yeah. Well, look, that debate, we wanted to see a defensive coordinator blitzing. He was in a prevent most of the night. He only blitzed at the end. It was a strategy. Remember who the debate was for. It wasn't that debate wasn't for to preach to the converted. It was to convert the faithless. And to do that, he had to show that A, he was statesmanlike, B, he got J.D. Vance to agree with him on several different. So then you're looking at the two and going, all right, who's right? And then it came down to the very end. And he had laid a beautiful trap for J.D. Vance. And J.D. Vance walked into that trap because he wouldn't answer the question, which you showed in the clip earlier. He tried to deflect. And by the way, Tim Walz had a beautiful response to the free speech argument. Folks, you can't, free speech has its limits. You can't walk into a crowded theater and scream fire when there is none. You can't, while hate speech is protected, threatening to kill people is not. So Walz was absolutely right and nailed him on everything that was important. The most important part of that debate, as I said that night, and as you said, Waj, the most important part of the debate was it was so subtle how he did it. But when he got him in the trap, he did not hesitate to bring the blitz. And at that point in time, he looked right at J.D. Vance and said, will you? And it was a simple question to answer and a damning non-response, damn straight. What that was a masterful bit, I thought, of debate. After I looked at it, like everybody else, I'm going, nail him. And then at the end of the night, I'm going, well, damn, he nailed him because
especially at the end.
He did it so subtly. And that's a great defensive coordinator. He played Muhammad Ali rope-a-dope tactics. He let J.D. Vance swing for and then at the end, he just gave him one quick uppercut, ting, and he was done. And that was and remember, they went to the break right after he said that, and you could almost hear the sarcophagus lid coming down. Boom, that's the end of JD. And that's why the polls are showing what they are today.
I think I agree. Go for it.
One last comment, though. Everyone was giving the moderators grief, particularly when they said, they asked J.D. Vance about the stuff that he did, calling Trump Hitler, and at the same time, then gave Walz grief about misstating something that going to Hong Kong. I know that you could say that it looked like false equivalence, but as a reporter, let me just say what that was all right, let's bring out the worst criticisms of both and see how they respond. And so, folks, they left it up to you, the voters, to decide which is worse. And if you have critical thinking, a guy who misstates when he went to Hong Kong, not whether or not he went, but when he went, versus a guy who called him Hitler and now will not admit that he lost the election, I think that's on us.
Thankfully, most people don't care.
No.
Like you said, like you and Tara said, that whopper at the end, I think really helped save Walz, but also made a very clear differentiation. But also, I think if people were listening, the policy on healthcare and women's rights, and I know women are listening to that. And speaking about abortion rights, which is healthcare rights, Spinderella Mercedes just dropped this in the chat that Melania Trump passionately defends abortion rights in exclusive upcoming memoir. I have carried this belief with me throughout my entire life, quote unquote. Former First Lady writes in memoir, quote, it is imperative to guarantee that women have autonomy in deciding their preference of having children based on their own convictions, free from any intervention or pressure from the government, quote, the Republican nominee's wife writes amid a campaign in which Donald Trump and J.D. Vance threaten women's reproductive rights. Tara, take it away. Exclusive news.
I don't give a fuck what Melania Trump has to say. I really don't. I don't care what she has to say. She is not a credible source. She is an enabler. She is a gold digger who has been in this for her own gain, obviously. And when it really mattered for her, she did not stand up and do the right thing and had the audacity to complain about her role as first lady, which is an honor. She could be milking goats in Slovenia, okay? And this country has given her an opportunity, and all she did was bitch and complain and look miserable the whole time she was there. She can fuck off. I don't care. I don't care what Melania Trump has to say, and nobody else should either.
Don't hold back, Tara. Please tell us what you really think. You're being too kind. Come on, let it out.
You know what?
I mean, I'm serious.
She lost me with the.
Wait. Go ahead, Tara. Go first, then Brian.
She plagiarized Michelle Obama. She doesn't have a thought of her own. She bitched about Christmas trees and decorating the White House. She was absent and used her son to hide behind it because she hates her husband and hates her life and hated being and didn't want to be in the White House. She'd rather be, I don't know, doing whatever she does. And I just think that is such an affront to all of the classy, service-driven first ladies that we've had in this country, particularly the one we have right now. I'm so glad that we have Jill Biden to come in and bring some respectability and class back to the first lady's office there, and that Melania Trump is an absentee wife, an absentee first lady, and what she has to say on anything, I guess, I don't know. Did the check clear? Is that why she's talking now? I really don't give a fuck what she has to say.
Wait, Brian, hold on. Wait, 1 second. Tara, that was exquisite, beautiful. I think I see steam rising from the computer. Yeah. Real quick, Brian, because in interest of time, I can't. I'll vomit inside my mouth if we talk about Melania Trump a little bit more.
No, I only have two short
go ahead. I want to switch over. Go ahead.
Yeah, two quick things to say. A, in deference to her, I do know she cares about her son. The rest of it, you're absolutely right. And two, she showed her hand when she walked into the chopper that one day with "I don't really care to you" written on the screw her. At the end of the day, I don't give a good goddamn what she says about politics any more than I care what she thinks about brain surgery.
We're gonna move on from Melania. I don't care. Do you, Trump? To a conservative, a Republican, who actually is showing some class and doing the right thing. News from today, folks. Liz Cheney, as you all know, used to be the number 3 Republican, folks. Her last name is Cheney. She made the mistake, just like Mike Pence, of choosing country over party. She is now kicked out of the party, seen as a villain. As of today, Liz Cheney, to help Kamala Harris seek red votes in swing states, she's going to campaign alongside Kamala Harris. One would think that you just go back, folks. Let's take the DeLorean to 2018. Did you ever think those words would ever come out of my mouth? Liz Cheney, who was the number 3 Republican, right? Actively campaigning with Kamala Harris, the VP, saying, hey, folks, vote for this woman over Donald Trump. It's a pretty big deal, but I want to ask Tara this, because Tara, you come from the ecosystem, the conservative ecosystem. And like you mentioned, and Brian has mentioned, at this point of the game, after everything we've talked about for the past 50 minutes, who the F is still undecided? What do you think? Will this be a benefit? Will this help? Will this hurt? You tell me.
I saw that. And again, it just kind of, for me, this whole experience has been surreal. I've talked about it even for me being at the DNC. And this, if you would have asked 2015 Tara if she would be fighting for democracy to save our country on the same side as some of the folks that, like, all of us probably would. Waz, you and I were on opposite sides on things policy wise, but got to know each other fighting against MAGA and Trumpism. It's brought so many of us together, and it really puts the politics has strange bedfellows axiom in a different light. I mean, the fact that you have Liz Cheney, who is more conservative than me, as conservative as they coming from the evil empire of the Cheneys, and she's sharing the stage with Kamala Harris to help get her elected. should tell everyone what a 911er this moment is for our country. That even political ideologues like Liz Cheney are willing to put all of that aside, cast all of those policy differences aside, and to join forces to help save our democracy from Trump is a really powerful testimony. It's no different than, it's a little different because it's on a bigger stage, but it's similar to Senator Barbara Boxer joining me alongside me at Seneca on our advisory board to help what we're doing with women. You know, Senator Boxer and I probably never agreed on anything back in the day when I was in the party and she was a senator. And I probably have public statements where I might have said negative things about Senator Boxer in that, you know, negative partisan kind of lens on things. But we are aligned on this. We are aligned on the stakes. We're aligned on what this means for our country. We're aligned on what it means for women in the future generations here. And the fact that we can all come together in that alignment speaks volumes. I don't think we have ever seen anything like this in modern politics. Hundreds of Republican elected officials, former elected officials, former Trump administration officials, former cabinet members, former chiefs of staff, all coming against Donald Trump with people they never would have joined forces with before on anything ever. That's how important it is. So good for Liz Cheney. I think she can make a difference on in some of those swing states, because there are Republicans like the Haley voters and people like that who still are not comfortable completely. They know they don't like Trump, but they're like, oh my God, Kamala Harris, she's so extreme on these things, and I'm going to vote third party or whatever. I think Liz Cheney helps those people get over the finish line, and we cannot take any vote for granted anywhere.
Brian, or at least not vote for Trump, right?
Right.
That's right. I think what her look, she voted with Trump 90% of the time while she was there. So she's definitely, her breaking point was when he, broke the law. I may be agreeing with you, but you broke the law, fella. So out you go. So yeah, good for her on that. But as far as that goes, I don't think that in her and Joe Walsh and a lot of these other Republicans that are campaigning, and I don't mean the guitar player for the Eagles, when they're out around the country campaigning, they're saying, if you want the Republican Party back as it used to be, you cannot allow Donald Trump back into the White House. I don't know if that means that they're going to vote for the Harris-Walsh campaign ticket, but I think it does mean there are many cases where I do believe that it means they won't be voting for Trump, and they will vote down ticket for their local. So that's as good as a win for
right.
That's the best. I think that's the best you can hope for. And Cheney showing up and campaigning with Harris does give the extra impetus for those who's sitting on the fence. Why are you? You're gonna, at this point, I think that does give that little extra impetus, but we'll have to wait and see.
Speaking about sitting on the fence, I think I want to talk about this real quick. The final topic of the day. We're seeing, when it comes to democracy, and we learn the lessons from, like, say, Hungary, right? You need a growing coalition, right? You need people who are pro-democracy to come together. And I'll take a Liz Cheney, I'll take a Cassidy Hutchinson, but I also need some Democratic voters. And this is the one weakness right now, I think, for Democrats and Kamala Harris. Bring up this poll, Spinderella, if you can. According to the Arab American Institute, they just did this poll, and James Ogby, the president, said, quote, in our 30 years of polling, Arab American voters, we have not witnessed anything like the role that the war on Gaza is having on voter behavior. I come from these communities. Brian, you come from these communities. These people aren't stupid. They see what's been happening in Gaza for the past year. They see now with Lebanon, there's 3 times as many Lebanese Americans than Palestinians in Dearborn, Michigan, folks. I could tell you, as of this week, with what's happened in Lebanon, what's happened in Gaza for the past year, the lack of Palestinian American speaker at the DNC, people are done. And if you look at these numbers, it's Trump and Kamala Harris near tie. One positive about that is when Biden was on the ticket, it was even lower. So Kamala's almost brought it like 50-50. But I know a whole bunch of folks who are they're smart. They can't bring themselves to vote for Harris or Biden. They'll vote down ballot or they'll keep it empty. And this election is going to come to the margins. Brian, I wanted to ask you about this because you actually are Lebanese American. You have family members in Lebanon, in Palestine. Talk to us about the anger and the pain of this community right now, and if we can win them over with 4 weeks left.
the anger and the pain is because they feel ignored and they feel like they're being criminalized because they have people that, and I have a cousin who I found out while we were on the air the other day is in the hospital after what happened in Beirut. And the guy's nothing more than he's not religious. He's not political. He just builds houses. And the fact of the matter is that those people feel that they are not being listened to. Their anger, they are willing to, here's how angry they are, folks. You're right, Watch. They are smart. They're so angry, they're willing to look past the fact that Donald Trump is a convicted felon. But they are not aware of how Donald Trump will screw them over because he doesn't give a damn about them either. And that's the conversation I have with my friends and my relatives, particularly in Michigan, particularly in the ones that I can reach. I'm reaching on that. The ones I cannot reach are the religious fanatics, the Catholic religious fanatics who believe that Donald Trump is the second coming of Jesus Christ and he walks in with a halo. You're never going to reach those. But for everyone else, the fact of the matter is I think that those polls are showing anger, but I think she underpolls in that community. I sit on a couple of boards for Lebanon, and we raise funds to distribute in Lebanon to rebuild. And a lot of those people are angry, but they're going to hold their nose and vote because they are afraid of Donald Trump. So I don't know how accurate those are. Like you said, she's closer than Biden. I think she's actually going to win that community. But in Michigan, that's a very large voting bloc, and she needs to pay attention to them. In that state alone, it could make a difference. So that's how you reach them. You let them know that you care about the innocent people. You're going to push for but the bottom line is this administration, the Biden administration and Harris as a candidate have to first admit that the conflict is widening. It's the one thing they haven't done. And that angers my cousins, my family, my friends there more than anything else. To deny the simple fact that the conflict is widening is what angers them, because it's like we're getting bombed. This is a widening conflict. If they do that, I think it will.
Yeah, and I will say this: that most voters, American voters, Republican, Independent, Democrat, want a ceasefire. Netanyahu is very unpopular. The family members of the Israeli hostages are protesting Netanyahu, realizing that he doesn't care about the hostages. The war is now widening. Americans don't have an appetite for war. And I could tell you from these communities, basic empathy, just sensitivity, feeling heard, feeling like someone cares about them as people are dying will go a long way. I haven't given up either, even though it makes me very unpopular in my communities. You can imagine. But
you and I can have a drink to that.
What's common to us isn't common to everyone, Tara. And I think we still have to bring it back full circle with the minute that we have left. I want to get you the final word. I think we have to remind Americans who, for whatever reason, might not want to vote for Kamala Harris because, they're lifelong Republicans, their daddy was Republican, the Gaza war, certain issues, that there's still no both sides, that this is the difference is clear. And with the minute that we have left, Tara, final word for those who are still on the fence, your pitch to them with all of this.
My pitch to those folks are, this is a time for choosing, and it's a binary choice. And if you believe in the fundamentals of what makes America great, then that means that it is up to every one of us to exercise our power to vote for the leaders, to choose the leaders that we want to lead our country into the future. And if you take a step back and look at the situation and decide, would you let your own son or daughter or your family members work for someone like Donald Trump and MAGA? Would you trust them with your family, with your pets, with your community? And would you be okay if your son or daughter brought someone home that said those things? And so if you're not okay with that in your own personal life, then you shouldn't be okay with that as a citizen of this great country. And it's up to all of us to exercise that right. Because if you want a government that is of, for, and by the people, then you need to be very sure about who you are entrusting that power to. And it starts with every one of us as a voter. And it's up to you. You have to make the choice.
And also, I like freedom and I like rights.
Right.
If you like freedom and rights, and 51%
That's right.
of the population are women. Yeah. I'm married to one and I got 2 daughters, and I'll be damned if they're going back. I want to thank everyone for watching. We have 20,000 viewers right now, folks. Wow. I am Brown Mary Trump. I got the call, the bat signal about like an hour ago. Hey, watch, host. So I jumped in. Thank you for Brian for being here. Thank you to Tara for being here. Thank you to those a part of our community. I want to give a shout out to our community. We listen to you and we read you during the live show, and y'all are now giving us some money. It goes a long way. Mary Trump Media started just a few months ago, like 4 months ago. We've already had like, I think, 150,000, 160,000 subscribers. For those who are watching right now, if you can, we've got 20,000 viewers. Just take a second to do this. Hit like on the video and then hit subscribe to Mary Trump Media. It'll take you 10 seconds. It goes a long way. Please support us. And then also, if you like this conversation, the YouTube video is gonna come on like, I think, 10 minutes. Share that video. And then finally, shamelessly, Brian and Tara, promote yourself and tell people how they can find you, how they can help you. Tara first.
Well, please, if you support our mission at the Seneca Project, you can support us at senecaproject.us. Follow us on YouTube. My co-founder, Michelle Kinney, and I, we also do a live stream show at 7:30 on Thursdays called The Stakes, coincidentally. You know, if you like our content and our videos and what you've seen that we put out, your donations, we're a super PAC. So we survive on the support of other people. So please help continue to support us. We're new. We started around the same time. I'm so honored to have Mary Trump in our corner. Mary has supported us as well to help us get off the ground and do our work. And so we're all in this together. And we just ask that if you aren't able to support us financially, same thing. Share our videos, like our YouTube channel, subscribe to our email list, and then you can get an update and see what we're doing and spread the word, because it's really what it's about, getting the content in front of the people that need to see it so that we can help make an impact, not only for this election, but beyond, because it doesn't end on November 5th. So at Seneca Project US on all the socials, and our website is senecaproject.us. Thank you.
Brian, talk to me about Reverse Shot real quick.
It's at Brian Karam on all social media. Reverse Shot, where we take a look at the press and its foibles and what it does right and wrong. That's here on the Mary Trump Media. Subscribe to the channel. Just Ask the Question. That's where you'll find it hosted. And the other podcast is called Just Ask the Question. And the name of the book is called Free the Press. You can find it wherever fine books are sold. And finally, you can catch me in Salon twice a week as we make fun of Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and the lunacy that we all face in today's politics, because that's the fun part.
And tomorrow at 12 p.m. live, I'll be co-hosting Democracy-ish with our beloved Danielle Moody right here on the Mary Trump Media. Please go check it out. It's going to be tomorrow, Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Time. And that's a wrap for this week's Mary Trump's Nerd Avengers. Mary will be back next week, folks. Until then, stay safe and vote. Take care.